Welcome everyone. This will be the final result of today's video. A fancy fade so that when you restart a level or transition to the next level, the level fades in this diamond pattern. Let's see how it's done.
Game Dev Journey.
So as I said, when we start a level or change to a new level, a nice touch is to include a scene transition. Films do this with fade-ins and fade-outs and wipes and so forth. We will create two different transitions, a simple fade and then a more interesting fade effect. So let's begin by creating a new scene and using a color rect as the root node. We can then rename it to transition or fade and change the color in the color picker over here. We can make it completely black. I'm going to add an animation player as a child because this is what's actually going to create the fade. So go ahead and search for the animation player and add it. Now, in the layout property of the color rect node, we are going to choose full rect, so you can either do it in the layout property of the color rect. You can set the anchor preset to full rectangle, or you can just do it here and choose full rect. This one, sorry. Let's just make sure that the color takes up the entire viewport. Now, on the animation player, in the animation dock down here, we're going to click on animation, click on new, and we'll name it fade. So you'll see the animation timeline here, and we're going to adjust the duration of the fade to 2 seconds, and we're going to zoom out on the timeline a little bit here, zoom in so that we can just see more steps between each one. Now, if we select the color rect node, our fade rectangle, and we go to the color property over here and we click on the key to add a keyframe, we get this little menu that pops up, and to create a track for the color, and we'll say create. So now we have an animation track for the color. Now what we can do is drag the timeline to 2 seconds because that's when the animation will complete. Go back to the color over here, click on it, and take the alpha channel all the way down to 0. That's a complete fade out, and press enter there. Now add the key next to it, and you'll see that the color is going to fade from fully visible to fully transparent over 2 seconds. And you can actually rewind this animation and see it happening like this. So what we now have is a fade going from full color to fully transparent over 2 seconds. So we can now save the scene as fade in our scenes folder, save, and we could now go to our level, first level actually here, and we could drag the scene in. Here's our fade scene. We could drag it in there. Let's put it right at the top. We need to set the animation to autoplay. If you come back here to the animation, there's this little button over here that says autoplay on load. Click on that. Save your scene again. If we go back to the level now, if we make it top level, right? There we go. Okay, so we had to make it top level so it appears above everything else in the scene. And now you get that fade as the game starts. So that's a simple fade. Let's see how to do a fancier fade effect. So let's again create a new scene. In the Pixel Adventure folder, in the folder called Other, there is a block there called Transition. It's a little diamond. Grab that and bring that into your assets and bring it in. Here, mine has appeared here in tiles. Transition is a little transition diamond. We're going to use that. So we'll create a new scene here, and this time we'll just use a node 2D as the root, and we can rename it to transition tile. And we'll add a sprite 2D to represent the tile. So take that, that's going to be the actual tile. And now we'll use this transition PNG as the texture of that sprite. So we drag it in, and there you can see the little diamond, black diamond. Just to help us here, let's set grid snapping. Let's go to our grid settings, configure the snap here. Let's set our grid step to 44 by 44. And let's just turn the grid on so we can see it. Okay. What we're going to do is duplicate this sprite until we've covered the entire row here. Add an animation player as a child of the transition tile. There we go. Now on the sprite itself, we're going to duplicate it and fill an entire row. So we're going to go Control D, drag across, Control D, drag across, Control D, drag across, and the grid snapping is helping us do this very precisely. Okay, and there we've got an entire row. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to select all of these sprite nodes and press Control, and well, before I do that, I'm going to just change the grid stepping to 22 by 22. Now that I've got all of them selected, I'm going to duplicate, Control D, and I'm going to drag down and to the right just to fill the gaps. And I'm going to press Control D again. I'm going to drag down and to the left to fill the gaps. And you're going to go down and right, down and left, all the way till you've filled the viewport. So go ahead and do that now. And there you go. Now you've got all your tiles. They've all filled the entire viewport. Now we're going to do the animations. So now we're going to select the animation player node, which is down here. We're going to click on animation. You're going to click on new, and let's call it shrink, because we're going to shrink these tiles away. So call it shrink. And here's shrink. And we can choose our duration. I'm going to go over 1.5 seconds. And what we're going to do is select all of these duplicated sprite nodes. So I'm going to click on the last one there, scroll all the way to the top, and hold shift and click on the top one. They're all selected. We're going to go to the transform and the scale size over here. And at 0, 0, they all start out at 1. They're full scale. So click on the key, and all of them are going to be added here. They're all full size over there. But by the time we get to the end of our animation, so by the time we get here to 1.5, we want them all to be 0. So we make them 0, and we click on the key, and they all scale away. Now we can play the animation like this, and you can see that they vanish in a diamond shape like that. And that's going to be our fancy transition. We also want this to autoplay on load, so we click on the autoplay. And now we can save our scene. Save it. We can call it, let's call it transition. Okay, transition tile, why not? Okay, I click save. Now we can go back to our first level. We can find our scene here, transition tiles, and we can drag it in over here. And again, we may have to make it top level. This is visibility, top level on. Yeah, now it's in front of everything. We can still turn the eye so that we can see behind. But now, if we run the level, we'll get the diamond transition. And there we go. So that's a nice way. Now that we've added the death function, it's a nice way to, let me just reload. It's a nice way to reload the scene after we die, for instance. If we get hit by the mushroom, 1, 2, and 3, we die, and then the scene reloads. Hope you enjoyed that. Let me know if you know a better way in the comments. See you next time.